Well, I appreciate the opportunity of being here. I do not feel like I'm in a foreign place right here. I feel very comfortable here. I spent, I don't remember exactly, 3 or 4 years working with the church here. Many of those that were here at that time are no longer here. They've gone on to their reward. And many of us who were here have gotten older. And we show that, don't we, Joe? Yeah, we show that age. I'll be 72 my next birthday, and I begin to feel it just a little bit. I have gone to the Philippines the last 5 years in a row. Plan on going back again in January. I'll be there for 3 weeks. The work in the Philippines is very, very hard. We have a picture up there. The Philippines. If you wanted to get on a plane and go to the Philippines, it'll take you about 45 hours to get there. It's a very long trip, depending on where in the Philippines you go. The Philippines where I go is Tuguegarao. If you look at the top, go back. If you look at the very top, this doesn't have a pointer on it, does it? If you look at the very, very top, you'll see a word that says Tuguegarao. That's where I work out of. It's a town of about 150,000 people. It's about the second largest or maybe the third largest city in the Philippines. The Philippines consist of 7,000 islands over a 1,700-mile stretch. Of those 7,000 islands, there's only about less than 4,000 that are inhabited. Some areas of the Philippines, particularly the area around Quezon City, Manila, the people are much better off financially compared to the people that we work with, or that I work with, I should say, in Tuguegarao. The reason I want to go there is because it's a very hard area. And you say, well, why would you want to go to a very hard area? Well, it's because the people there are in such need. But the main thing is they're very humble people. They're very receptive to the gospel. They come and they listen. They'll sit for 3 and 4 hours to be taught and then want you to teach them even more. The little buildings, and I'll show you pictures of those that they have, very, very small if they have a building. Some of them don't even have a building, but they'll crowd in those buildings. They'll sit on just a bench. Don't have any backs, don't have any padding, just a bench. Building fills up, they sit on the floor. If the floor fills up, they'll sit outside the building on the dirt or on a stump of a tree. If those fill up, they'll stand beside the windows and look in the windows and stand there and listen. Over the last 5 years, because of the Lord, there have been 266 people baptized into Christ through these last 5 years. We go in expecting to teach the truth with as much kindness and love as we possibly can, but we go in teaching the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And we want them to know that there's but one Lord. And we tell them very frankly, that Lord is not the Pope in Rome, and that Lord is not the priest up the street. There's one building, a congregation we go to, it's called Santor. It was the very first congregation that Robert Gameo, and he's the man that I work with. Robert has established over 50 congregations of the Lord's Church in the Philippines. And the first one he ever established was the church at Santor. And he started out with just he and his wife and his children, and now that congregation has over 300 members. And every Sunday when we go there, it is so crowded that Evelyn, before we have the formal worship hour, she'll take children. How many of you in here are Bible class teachers? I guess most of them are in the back, right? But if you've been a Bible class teacher, how would you like to teach a Bible class with 60 children in it, and you're the only teacher? Well, Evelyn teaches a Bible class every Sunday morning with somewhere between 50 to 60 children in it. And that's hard, I'll guarantee you. But she does it with much joy in her heart. If you wanted to get, like I said, to the Philippines, we go from here to Dallas, from Dallas to Los Angeles, then we catch a plane, about a 15, 16-hour flight to Manila nonstop. Then we sit for about 10 hours, and then we catch another plane, and we go to Gigaro. So if you count all the hours of flying, sitting, waiting, flying, sitting, waiting, and the fact that you cross the international date line and lose a day, you're up for about 45 hours. So you're pretty tired by the time that you get there. So to Gigaro, northern part, we work 3 provinces in that area, and I preach twice every single day. If I'm there 13 days, I preach 26 times. If I'm there 22 days, I preach 44 times, Joe. Twice a day, every single day. And we work very hard. We work 12, 14, 15 hours a day. We start at 7 o'clock in the morning. We don't quit till around 9 o'clock each night. And so it's a very hard work, very difficult work. The temperature over there, I always go in January because it's wintertime there, which means that the temperatures stay in the 90s. That's their winter. In their summer, it will be anywhere from 100 to 110 degrees. If it happens to get down in the 70s and 80s, the people get cold. They get very, very cold. That's cold for them, whereas you and I, it wouldn't feel that way, would it? This is a picture of the Gamayo family. And Robert is the man in the very top back row with a white shirt on. His wife is sitting down in front of him. She's got a white shirt with black trim across of it. And then they had 3 children and several grandchildren. They became Christians in I believe it was 1985, and they decided that they wanted to do what they could do in their homeland to bring as many people to Christ as they possibly could, and that's exactly what they've been doing since that time. The congregation that I was an elder at for many years, the Pasco congregation, we were supporting Robert. I don't remember exactly how we found out about him, but anyway, we did. And we talked to the eldership. He lost some of his support at that particular congregation, not because of any problem, but they just didn't have the money to support him any longer. So we picked up that support. And I started communicating with Robert, and he said, come over and help me, come over and help me. Sort of like the Macedonian call, come over and help me, come over and help me. And I told him, I said, well, I can't come right now, I'm working. I did the same kind of work Joe did. We sort of did the same thing, and we worked long days, didn't we, Joe? Long hours in that kind of business that we worked in. But I said, I promise you, the year that I retire, I will come to the Philippines. Well, I retired in February 2013, couldn't go that year. It was too late. It was already late February. The summer season had already started, and Robert advised me not to come at that time, come the next year. So I went in 2014, and I've gone every year since then. Here's the picture of Bervine Ann. They are now living in Iowa City. She is a registered nurse, and she and her husband brought their children here to the United States about 5 years ago. And they were living up there. This is Bernard. He lives in Manila with his wife and two daughters. This is Beverly. She doesn't have a husband because he was killed in a motorcycle wreck about 5 years ago. Terrible, terrible wreck. And this is Beverly. She just finished her doctoral degree. By doctoral degree, I mean she is a physician. She's a physician. She's a gynecologist. And this is her daughter, Sophia. And Sophia is, I can't say enough about Sophia. She is a sweetheart. There's Sophia there on the left. This with some of her friends. Here's where Genesis, they obeyed in 85. This is the Bliss congregation. Now, the thing over there is that they don't have church buildings like we have. A lot of them don't have a church building at all, and I'll show you that in just a minute. This particular congregation, they don't have a church building. What they do is they just set chairs out underneath some trees. If it's threatening rain, they'll spread a tarp over it. And so I was at the Bliss congregation, and I was up preaching at that time. This is a side view of that congregation. Robert's down there in the bottom left-hand corner. The man standing behind him is Brother Ano, and I'm sort of in the red shirt there. This is the Roma Church of Christ. They have a building. As you can see, it's unusual to have a building like that, but it does not have concrete floors. It has gravel dirt floors. The people's houses over there are made mostly of bamboo sides, grass roofs, dirt floors, no running water, no running electricity. They just don't have it. They can't afford it. This particular congregation, the Lewan congregation, they spread a tarp. We sit under the tarp, and the reason we do is because it gets hot. So we spread a tarp out. We sit underneath that tarp and we worship. And that's where I preach there. That's sort of a side view. This particular congregation is way, way, way out in the country. And there's a lot of stories I could tell you about this congregation. All good. I'm sitting on the sides, and I don't know if you can tell, they've actually got some support to their back on those benches. Most of the time they don't. This is the Lewan Norte Church of Christ. And again, you'll notice that it's just a tarp spread over some trees with some chairs under it. That is the Lewan Norte Church of Christ on the other side of the building. This is the Santor. Now, this is the first congregation that Robert established when he began to work. And he has, and I'll show you in a minute, but he has trained about 50 through the years. He's trained about 50 men to be preachers. And so what we do, they're located all over these little provinces that we go to. And so we go out to every one of them, as many of them as we can get to in the time that we have to encourage the church and to preach the gospel. Now, this is the Santor Church. Now, the thing that's so unusual about this church is that they started with Robert and Evelyn. This is the one that's now got somewhere close to 300 members, counting the children. Every time we come to town, and every time Robert comes to town, there's a priest there, and as all the little villages have their own priests, they have their own little buildings, temples, whatever you want to call them. And every time we come to Santor, that priest will get on the bell, and he'll ring the bell. He rings that bell real loud, just keeps on ringing it. And what he's doing, he's telling people, Robert's in town. Don't go down there. Don't go down there and listen to Robert, because he's a false teacher, and he'll lead you astray. So don't go down there. If you got any spiritual questions, come to me. And what's so unusual about it, what's happened, it's actually driven people down there, because it's sort of tweaked their curiosity, I guess you could say. And so that was the building, but it got hit by a typhoon. It took off just about all the roof, took out all the windows. You can see the benches are still there. The Sunday morning after that typhoon came through, and that typhoon, we call them hurricanes, but they call them typhoons. Largest hurricane ever to be recorded, ever, anywhere in the world. 245-mile sustained winds, 400 miles wide, and that didn't count all the outer winds. That was literally the hurricane, and a 25-foot seawall. And that thing came ashore. This building is inland about 30 miles from the ocean, and that thing came through there, and it absolutely wreaked havoc. And if you were here early enough to see the pictures that were showing up on the screen earlier, all of those, every single one of them, were a result of typhoons. It tears people's houses up. It tears buildings up. There's one building in Tigigaro that the city built out of steel beams. And that thing came through there, and it twisted those steel beams like they were made out of paper. You can't even tell that it was a building. We were able to get the building back, get a roof on the building, get windows in. And there's about, you can't tell it from this picture, there's about 230 people in there, because you can't see them all. You can't see everybody over on this side, or be to your left. So there they are. And you still can't see them all. But you got to keep in mind there's about 50 to 60 children over in another little building off to the left that Evelyn is teaching. And there's the rest of them. So you can't see everybody. Last couple of years, I've been carrying a young man with me named John Hatcher, and he's going to go back with me this year. He's 29 years old now. The reason I'm carrying him, and I told him really I was carrying him over there to get him a wife. He's not married. And we always tell everybody, girls, he's single. And boy, the girls flock to him. And Philippine women are very beautiful women. They really are. And they all like to marry American husbands. They don't want to marry Philippine husbands. And the reason for it is their work ethic is very, very poor. Philippine husbands' work ethics are extremely poor. They don't take a lot of interest in taking care of their families. So they want to marry American husbands because they know American husbands will take care of them. And so it's sort of a joke, but it's really true. And there's these 3 girls over there that have really latched on to him. I don't know if I've got pictures of them or not, but they've really latched on to him, and they're Facebooking him all the time. But the real reason I carried him over there is because there's going to come a day that I'm not going to be able to go. I'm almost 72 years old, and I'm either going to die or my health's going to get so bad I can't go. Well, I don't want that work to stop, and I'm hoping by that time John will have such a strong interest in it that he will pick that work up and keep going. And that's the real reason for it. That sort of gives you an idea. But that's not all the babies. That doesn't include the babies either. I forgot about the babies. There's some of the babies. Every year we carry toothbrushes. I have a dentist that gives me toothpaste and toothbrushes, about 250. And every year I ship those things over. And I send them over specifically for this congregation. Most of the people over there do not have dental care. They lose most of their teeth, a lot of their teeth, because they don't have dental care because they can't afford dental care. And so that's them holding up toothbrushes and toothpaste. This is the Catagabagan congregation. It's the only congregation that's within the city of Tuguegarao. It's the nicest building that you'll find. It's unusual, but you've got to understand that these people here, for the most part, have good jobs. And so they're able to have somewhat of a nicer building. Now, radio broadcast. Robert preaches on the radio 3 times a day. It costs $960 a year to keep that radio program. And this last year, he simply did not have the $960, so we had a gentleman there at the Fairview congregation where I preached, donated the $960, and when we got over to Manila, over to Tuguegarao, I told Robert, I said, the first place we need to go tomorrow is go to the radio station and pay off the $960 so you'll have that radio program paid for another year. Because behind him, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Pentecostals, and the Catholics are waiting for him to drop that radio program so they can get it. So if he ever loses it, he won't get it back. He has baptized more people off that radio program. It's the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen. From the time I left this year and got back home, he baptized 6 people off that radio program. That's how effective it is. People listen to it. And this year we wanted to buy transistor radios, and we ran out of money. But we're going to do it this year. When I preach, Robert translates. We do not do an invitation song. Robert will translate the lesson, and then he will say, if you want to be saved in Jesus Christ today, walk forward. That's what he says. And people will walk forward. But we don't sing. One more thing about the singing. How many song leaders we have in here? I know we got several. Raise your hand if you're a song leader. Oh, I got several. Well, they don't sing the way we sing. And I had the hardest time getting used to this. Now, they sing the same songs we sing. The only difference is the main language over there is what's called Tagalog, but the dialect is Lagano. And I don't speak but a very little bit of Lugano. And so what they'll do is they'll get up, and the song leader has his songbook. He'll have it open. He'll say, turn to number 234 or whatever it is. And then he'll start singing it. And he will sing the first couple of bars or chords. Shows you how much I know about leading and singing. But he'll sing it. He does it for two reasons. Number one, he wants to make sure that he has the tune right. And number two, he wants to make sure that he has the pitch right. So he'll sing that. Well, first time I was over there, as soon as he started singing, I started singing. Robert slapped me. He went, I said, what are you doing? He said, you don't sing yet. He'll tell you when to sing. Well, this went on. It took me about 6 or 7 congregations before he stopped slapping me, because I kept doing it, because I'm used to, when Joe gets up and leads singing, we sing, right? All at the same time. That's not how they do it. So the Brother Arno will get up and he'll start that song, whatever it is that he's leading. He'll make sure the pitch is right. He'll make sure he's got the tune right. And then he'll say, okay, church, sing. And then he'll start singing, and everybody starts singing. And that's how they do it. We don't do that here, but that's how they do it there. Now, baptisms. They don't have baptistries. So we baptize people wherever we can baptize them. When a person responds to the gospel, we baptize. This is the young man that you saw just a second ago. It was at the church there in town. That church building does not have a baptistry. So we went over to the local swimming pool, and we knew they had this little, play pool, children's play pool, but it's deep enough. And we had him sit down, and Robert told him why he was baptizing him, emphasizing that, and then he baptized him. He bid him back and he baptized him. Now, this is a nice place to baptize. Transportation. This is what they call a Jeep. We call it a bus. It's against the law to ride on top of the bus, or the Jeep, as they call it. But they do it anyway. To get around to Gigaro and out of the country, they will ride, because the bus is full inside. They'll hang on to the sides. They'll hang on to the back. Sometimes you'll see the bus totally covered. You can't see the side of the bus or the back of the bus because people are hanging on. And it's against the law, but they don't enforce it. This is the church at Virginia. Again, if you'll notice, I don't know if you can see, but they hold these things up with trees. They cut trees down, and that's how they hold the roofs up. But that's a tarpaulin, actually. And you notice the building behind? That's somebody's house. And that's where somebody's at. And you notice the roof? Isn't that a nice roof? How would you like to have a roof like that on your house? Very common. And there we are worshiping. And there wasn't enough chairs, so you see all the people standing? That's just what they do. Every year, Robert holds a monthly lectureship. These are some of the men he has trained to be gospel preachers. These men are rice farmers. They work in rice fields, bent over 12 hours a day, making 61 cents an hour. That's what you get paid to work in rice fields. And they'll work 12 hours a day, and then at night, they will go out and teach. And then on Sundays, they conduct the worship service. The young man on the far right back that's got the black shirt with yellow stripes, that's Brother Louis, and I can tell you so much about him. But this last year, there were 2 typhoons that came through, and it knocked their building down, what you could call a building. And the man that owned the land that little building was sitting on said, I want my land back. And so Brother Louis found a piece of land for 150,000 pesos. Now that sounds like a lot of money, doesn't it? 150,000 pesos. That's less than $4,000 in American money. He wanted me to give him $500 so he could pay $500 down. The man said, give me $500 down, give me $75 a month, but if you miss a payment, I get to keep all the money and the land's mine. Well, Brother Louis works all day long, 12, 13-hour days, hard labor. to take care of his family. And I knew that if he just gave that man $500, he would miss a $75 a month payment. Somewhere along the line, it would happen. Someone said, well, what about the contribution? Contribution to that congregation is about $5 a Sunday. So that's certainly wasn't the answer. So I told Robert, I said, I'm not willing to do that. I will not give him $500. I will give him the entire $150,000, though. And so, Joe, part of the money I took over there was to buy that land in full so that he wouldn't have to come up with $75 a month and have that stress on him, and they wouldn't lose it. And that was the right answer. They bought the land in the process of getting a little building built, and that'll be theirs. Can't be taken away from them. This is the Laytac congregation. This congregation it's a small building, really small, but it is crowded every time we go there. And in order to get there, we cross a river on a barge. I'll show you something else about that. This is the vice mayor of Santanino. He was baptized the first time he heard the gospel. He was baptized. That's been 4 years ago. He's still a faithful member of the church there. And he's the vice mayor of the town that he lives in. That's just sort of inside the Laytac congregation. Can you see the people sitting on the outside? Can you see the people looking in the windows over on the left side? Another one. There they are. Couldn't get in the building, so they just sat outside. Two of them are sitting on a bench. There's one sitting over there, you can't see it, sitting on a tree stump. And then they're sitting on the other side. Brother Gil Gottelos, preaches there, and I love Brother Gil. He's such a soft-hearted, good man. That's some of the ladies at the Laytac congregation. That's some of the people there at the Raga, which is right down the road. That's Daesan Church, the man in the stripe on the left. That's Brother John Dagyam. We picked his support up this year. He had been getting $250 from a lady for years and years and years. She got to where she couldn't do it anymore. So we were able to pick his support up and send him support regularly. That's Brother Ano. That's the one I was telling you about, okay, church, sing. That's Asalan Church. That congregation meets on the side of the road. And the thing that I remember about that church so much, and you can't see her in this picture, but 3 years ago she had a baby when we got there, and she had this baby. It was like 5 months old, and it had a very high fever. They have a fever over there that, generally speaking, only children catch. And unless it's treated very, very quickly, the baby will die. Well, this child had that fever, but she did not have the money to take that child to the doctor or to get that child really needed to be in the hospital, and the baby died. So last year, not this year, but the year before, she had another baby. Now her husband works in the fields, rice fields, like everybody else, for 61 cents an hour, trying to support his family. And she had another baby, had the same thing. Child had a high fever. So I went to Brother Ano, and I said, Brother Ano, how much money would it take for you to get that woman and that child back to Tigigaro and get them in the hospital where this baby can be treated? And he said, it'll take 5,000 pesos, less than $100. Less than $100. So I gave $5,000 or 5,000 pesos to him, gave him a couple extra thousand pesos for gas. They took off immediately. We weren't even through worshiping. He took off immediately. Got the child in the hospital. This last year, when we went there, and like I said, they just sat on the side of the road. The trucks are running up and down the road. I mean, literally 10 feet from you when you stand there preaching. This lady walked up to me. She said, do you remember me? And I said, your face looks familiar, but I can't place your name. But you see, you meet so many. I mean, literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, And she said, I'm the lady that last year that you helped get my child in the hospital, and here's the child. And the child was healthy. I tried to hold it, and it wouldn't. It cried. I don't know if he's scared of me or whatever. But that child's life was saved. Child would have died. Absolutely, no question about it. That's that congregation, large congregation. That's the Manalo congregation. That's where Brother Ruffy Grande preaches. And Brother Ruffy, I love Brother Ruffy. He is in the back in a light blue open collar shirt, standing beside a man with a yellow shirt to his right. That's the Damarug congregation. That's where Brother Freddie preaches. And that's the Camaro Church where Brother Jay preaches in Algameo. That's another San Vicente congregation in Kalinga. The thing about Kalinga, I'll tell you this little story about Kalinga. If you run over a chicken in Kalinga, if you're riding down the road and a chicken runs out in front of you and you run over that chicken, they will arrest you for killing a chicken. And they will fine you. They'll fine you for that chicken. They'll fine you for all the eggs that chicken would have laid. They figure that up. Then they fine you for all the little chickens that chicken would have had. And Robert hit one time, and I asked Robert, I said, how much do you have to pay? It was about $350 American dollars that he had to shell out because he ran over a chicken. That place also have gangs, and they kill each other. It's a very dangerous place. And there's one place that we travel going to Kalinga. You go around this curve, and then it dips sort of down, and they wait there. They have stopped many a car and stolen from many people. They've killed some people. So when we go through there, going over into that area, we fly through there. We don't slow down. Robert guns it, and we go just as fast as we can to get through there. So far, we haven't been stopped. That's the Lulatong Church, Unag Church, and so forth. There's another one, San Vicente. That congregation is the congregation, the second year that I was there, gave me a live chicken. They walked up and they had this live chicken in this plastic bag. Well, their only source of protein is chicken. And we always have a fellowship meal after. And when I get there, all the preachers show up at Robert's house in the garage, and we give them money because they don't have money to buy the food for these fellowship meals after the preaching. So they walked up to me when I was there, and they gave me this live chicken. I turned to Robert, and I said, Robert, I can't take this chicken. And he said, you've got to take the chicken. And I said, but this is their only source of protein. He said, you've got to take the chicken. If you don't take the chicken, you will hurt their feelings. You must take the chicken. So I took the chicken, took it home, took it back to the city, and Evelyn, his wife, cut it up, cleaned it, cooked it, and we had it for supper. They gave Robert one too. That's the Santa Catalina Church. See the floors? Just dirt floors. Another one. That's the Baylog Church of Christ. If you'll see the lady in the front in the pink blouse sitting next to a little boy in a blue shirt, every year we help her. Her name is Linda Santori. We help her every year. And the reason we do, her husband was coming home from work about 5 years ago. A water buffalo walked out in front of him on a motorcycle, which most people, that's how they travel. He hit that water buffalo, they weigh over 2,000 pounds, threw him off the water buffalo, came down on the other side, let his head land on the concrete, killed him instantly. So we help her every year financially. Kamasi, I can tell you a little about trying to get to Kamasi. It's a hard place to get to. It's terrible. If you don't have back problems before you go to Kamasi, you will when you get through. That's the Hillside Church. You see the dogs everywhere. They'll walk into the services. You can't touch any of the dogs. You can't fool with any of the dogs. They're everywhere. You can't touch the cats. They're everywhere. They're all rabid for the most part. They have no control of their population. First year I went, the travel doctor I went to, said, I won't make you take the rabies shot if you promise me that you won't touch the dog, you won't touch the cat. And I promised them I wouldn't. So you don't touch the dogs, you don't touch the cats. 3 responded to the gospel. That's the Bear Buck. This is where Brother Leo preaches. This is the building that was blown down, that they had to get another place, and they found a piece of land, and you need 150,000 pesos to buy the land. Where Brother Leo is the one in the blue plaid shirt standing there. That's another one called San Vicente, hillside again, baptistry. We baptized wherever we could find water, enough water to do it. At this particular place, we were at the Hillside Church, there wasn't any water close by. So what we did was we went over to a rice field. We dammed up, there was a hole in the ground right there, about 3 feet deep. We got the guy whose rice field it was, told him what we wanted to do, so he dammed it up. And then he turned the water that he was flooding the rice field with and put it into that hole, that muddy hole. We got enough water in it, and that's where we baptized her. These right here are where they cold water in order to flood rice fields. And so we baptized people in that. That lady right there, 87 years old, obeyed the gospel. Been a Catholic all her life, obeyed the gospel at age 87. Nothing unusual. Those are ditches, just muddy ditches. We baptized that man in that ditch. This is at Santora. The only place we can baptize at Santora is where this little creek falls off the main river. The typhoon had come through. It filled the ditch full of sand. So Robert got these 4 little boys down in there, and they started digging. And they were digging that sand out until they could get a hole big enough to do that. And we baptized that lady. But we had to get the water deep enough, Joe, where we could get her under the water. And we baptized those 2. This lady right here had arthritis real bad. We couldn't bend her back. I said, okay, we can take care of that, not a problem. We took her down, just right down the street, filled this barrel full of water. 2 men picked her up, set her down in the barrel. Brother Ano said, I baptized in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and pushed her down underneath the water, baptized her. So we baptized her up, straight up and down, not bending back. You do what you have to do to get folks into Christ. There's another lady we had to do the same reason. We baptize in the river. Sometimes we have to go way out in the river to baptize, to find enough water deep enough. Those are all those that were baptized. Those were from Latac, by the way, the one I was telling you about. I don't baptize unless somebody absolutely insists and says, we want Brother Cordell to baptize. I want to baptize 5 people in 5 years. We had to go back to that swimming pool again that I showed you earlier. That was the closest place. We had to pay, to do it. But anyway, the reason I don't baptize is I'm going to leave and come home. The preacher is still going to be there, and he's going to be the one to continue to work with these people and teach them and bring them further knowledge of Christ and the church. So I really think it's better for the local itinerant preacher to do the baptizing. But sometimes they insist, and I will. Everybody that's baptized gets a Bible. Bibles are cost us about $10 a piece now. When we first went the first year, they were around $6. They're up to almost $10. There's water buffalo. They ride them for transportation. They use it to plow fields. They use it to haul things. Every morning, the women will get up and go shopping in the market. And one of the things they go shopping for is meat. Now, they hang the meat out in an open place like that, and they'll stand beside with something's fanning. What do you think they're fanning it for? Keep the flies off. And when we go to Kalinga, every year we pass this one place. There's a lot of places like this. So I got a picture of this one. You can see some pig's feet over there on the right. I don't know what all is in there, but different types of meat, a lot of hog meat of different types. But they'll leave that out all day long. And then you got to remember, you're talking about 90-degree temperatures. They'll leave that out all day long. And when you come back, some of it will be gone, but some of it's still there, and they're still selling it, and people are still buying it. But they don't get sick on it, so I wouldn't eat it, but they do. There's Robert's chicken. There's my chicken. When we go have these fellowship meals afterwards, they cook. They don't have stoves. They don't have anything, but they build a fire on the ground. They take these utensils. They throw all the chicken, whatever, that's chicken, and they cook it on the ground. Am I not pushing hard enough or pushing too hard? Well, yeah. You can see that? They cook it on the ground. They get well water out, and they cook it. And then we eat it. Is it appetizing? Not by our standards, but you have to eat it. You have to eat some, because if you don't eat some, that hurts their feelings. So you have to eat some. So I always eat some. I'm careful, but I do eat. Just going to show you, there's the Santor building. I'm just going to show you some more pictures real quick of some homes. That's the Santor building. There it is again. Some of the same pictures. You see that bridge? That typhoon came through. Those concrete posts were sunk in concrete 7 to 8 feet down in that river, Joe. And that typhoon came through and it knocked that bridge, concrete bridge, out. Last year it was still out. They say they're going to rebuild it. So now we get to go across the river in a different way. And I guess that's it. Oh, there's our transportation across the river. 5 horsepower engine with a bunch of things on top of 2 boats. And then when you get to the other side, they'll lay some planks down and try to guide you off on the other side. And that's what we ride across the river. It's called a Caligalig. That's what they use to plow rice. Sometimes we have to walk a lot of places to get to rivers. We travel that bridge. Every year we wonder if it's going to give way, but people work it in the rice fields. And that's it. And these are just some other pictures of people's homes this last year. They were destroyed. So I'll quit. Real quick, any questions? Because I know we're getting ready to start worship here in a minute. But no, they do not speak English. Only the ones that speak English. Some inside the main city do. The preachers, for the most part, do. But the people themselves do not speak English. So I'm trying to learn Lugano. It's a very difficult language to learn. Any other questions? Anybody got anything they're wondering about? Well, afterwards today, if you are such that you got something you want to ask me, just come up and ask me. If I know the answer, I'll tell you. And if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I don't know the answer. Thank you for your time.